Today I'm going to show you how I skin retouch my photos using a technique called frequency separation. We're going to transform this photo into this, and I'll show you exactly how I do it step by step. First things first, I'm going to duplicate the background layer. So I'm going to press Command J twice, and then the bottom layer, just select that one, and then I'm going to name it low frequency. And then the top layer, I'm going to name it high frequency. So just turn that off, the high frequency layer, by pressing the I, and then we're going to go to the low frequency layer, and I'm going to go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and you can set it anywhere from 5 to 10 pixels. I'm going to go ahead and do 5, press OK, and then what you want to do is go to the high frequency layer, turn that one back on, and then what you want to do is go to Image, Apply Image, and then you want to make sure the layer selected is low frequency. The blending mode, make sure that's set to subtract. Opacity is at 100. The scale, you want it to be 2. And then offset, you want it to be 128. So it should look like this. So then you want to press OK. And then you want to go from normal to linear light. And that's pretty much it. So what I usually do is just make this into a grouped folder. So then just select both of these layers and then press this little folder, and then you can just name it. You can name it whatever you want, but I'm going to name it frequency separation. And now it's all organized in its own little folder. So it will just be easier to get to. So let's begin actually retouching. So first thing, I zoom in to my photo. I don't zoom in super close. I probably zoom in up to here. And then you want to select the healing brush tool, and I'll show you all of my settings. So the size is at 90 pixels, hardness is at 100%, spacing 25, angle 0, roundness 100. And keep in mind, I am using a tablet to retouch. I would 1000% recommend a tablet. It makes it so much easier. I'll have a link in the description to the exact one I use. It's a Wacom tablet, and I've been using this tablet for years. So if you're retouching, would definitely recommend it. So those are the brush settings, and then you want to make sure the mode is set to normal, source sampled, aligned. You don't want to have that checked, but you do want to check use legacy. And this, it's based on preference. Personally, I like to use the legacy healing brush algorithm. So basically Photoshop came out with a new way that the healing brush tool works. It's like a brand new algorithm. I didn't like using it, so I prefer to use, they give you the option of using the legacy healing brush, which is the old algorithm. So I personally like that better. You can kind of experiment and see which one you like. I would recommend using legacy, but it's up to you. And then the sample is current layer. So with all of that, you should be good to go. Now, next thing you want to select is the low frequency layer. And personally, I like to duplicate this layer just because if I mess up or I want to change it up or I think I went too far, I can always just start over without having to do this whole thing all over again. So that's just what I do. And then what you can also do is by turning off the high frequency layer, the photo gets blurry, which actually is helpful when you're retouching because then you can see how smooth the photo is looking and how you're transitioning everything a lot easier. This is just my personal preference. You can keep it on, but I find retouching to be easier with that layer off. So again, high frequency is off, and let's begin retouching. I am holding down the Option key, and as you can see, when I do that, it turns into this little target. So basically it's asking for a sample. So you want to sample. What I personally do is I like to sample in the same area that I'm retouching. So for instance, Lovis right here, her cheek is a bit, she has some blush on her cheek. I obviously want to carry that out throughout the rest of her skin. I'm not going to take this highlight right here and then I'm not going to put that here because look what that does. So what you want to do is select with colors that are similar and shadows and lights that are similar, and just go from there and constantly sample when you can around that same area. So I'm going to go slowly here so you can see. So I'm going to start off with the blush right here, and I'm sampling this middle area, and I like to start off with a cleaner area. Like I find a little section that is a bit that is a good sample area, and then I will just do tiny brush strokes. We're not trying to do something like this. We don't want the brush to be too large. I would say something like this size would be just fine. So you kind of want to do baby brush strokes. We're just trying to smooth out the area. And again, I'm constantly sampling as I'm doing. So I'm not sampling one time, and I'm not going to use this sample for the rest of the, I will constantly change it. So this takes practice. If you're watching this and you find yourself struggling, I promise it gets so much easier as you practice. So don't give up. Don't feel discouraged. It's not the first time you do this, you're going to be like, what am I doing? This is terrible. Like, it's going to be a learning curve, but trust me, you got this. You can do it. So moving up here, I'm going to sample now from this area because again, now it's getting lighter. The colors are changing. So you want to sample now from this area and then make your way up. Again, very small brush strokes. And this is why having a tablet is so handy, because you can just, it's like coloring. I love to color. I mentioned this in a lot of my retouching videos. I haven't colored in a while though. It's kind of, we should probably change that, right? So going up here, I'm sampling from this. I'm just doing, again, tiny brush strokes. As you can see, I'm sampling again and going outwards. So I guess I like to work outwards. I never really, I don't really pay attention to how I retouch anymore. I just kind of do it. But to me, it's just selecting an area on the inside, like for instance right here, and again, just smoothing out those other areas. And then when you come to an area where there's going to be a bit of shadow, you don't want to take that shadow away completely. You kind of want to keep the shadow because that's what keeps the dimension in the photo. So just be careful and try to, again, sample from the areas close by. And I'll show you guys more of that with the other parts, like right here. So again, we're sampling, clicking, and little brush strokes. And when I first did this, I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. It took me a while, I'll say, to finally get this down. Now, you could do frequency separation. You could also do dodge and burn retouching, which is a lot more professional. It looks cleaner, but it's a bit difficult to learn. It's dodge and burn retouching is something that I would also like to learn. I know the basics of it, but just I stick more to frequency separation because it just works for me for the type of photography I do. But dodge and burn retouching is also something that you can learn in the future if you want to really know how to skin retouch more professionally. That's something I would recommend. Now that we've got this area over here cleaned up, I'm going to show you before and after. So this is before, this is after. And let's move on over to this area over here under the eye. So I'm going to take this area, sample it. I'm clicking and I'm slowly moving it towards this area, this under eye area. And I'm doing that more than taking from this area because there's a lot of different colors here. So this seems like the safer option for me. So we're just going to smooth this area out. And then again, I'm clicking right here and I'm bringing this in. And that to me is a bit smoother than if I were to bring this area in and try to sample that. And again, we're back to the blush area and I'm just pushing that outwards a bit Again, sample, click, and then go outwards. And this area right here, the smile lines, always tricky. I'll show you how I tackle that because it can be pretty tricky. And I'm simply sampling from this top area, bringing it down now. Again, we're just seeing where the colors are similar and we're blending those together. And then over here, I'm going to clean up just a little bit. And then at the bottom here, I'm going to sample in the middle and then just do a bit from the sides at first just to clean those up and then work my way upwards. And sometimes what will happen is you'll sample and then, okay, you'll do something like this and then it won't exactly transition well, or it will be kind of, it will be patchy. Don't freak out. You can always undo it, or you can simply blend it in again with that similar color. But that's why I always have that duplicate layer. That's why I do that. And I have some other techniques that I use to make sure that it doesn't look too patchy. I'm going to increase the brush size just a little bit. Down here. And we're sampling from the top now. And we're bringing it down this way. There's a lot of sampling going on, so I'm constantly clicking the option button on my keyboard and sampling from different areas, just so it's not all the same color. I do want it to be fairly smooth, so it will be a lot smoother for me if I use different colors. So then we're bringing it in this way, kind of downwards here. Now this area, the smile lines and under the lips, you can see there's a shadow. Now this area you want to be careful over retouching it. I'll show you how I kind of navigate this. But before, I'm just cleaning up this top area a little bit. Okay, now what I'm going to do is duplicate this layer again. This is just what I like to do. I just want to make sure that, again, if I go too far with this, I can always just restart. So this area over here, what I tend to do is I go in very lightly because I do still want to keep that shadow there. I don't want to completely get rid of it. And you want to make sure when you're in this area over here that you're using a smaller brush. Trying to go a little bit slower. I'm going way too fast. Sometimes I forget. I'm showing people how to do this. Okay, so again, we're sampling the inside of this shadow. And you can always just smooth it out a lot more if you want to, if that's your preference. I'll show you again how I do this. Just smoothing out, transitioning it from the edges. And then this area right here, you can see there's a highlight. I'm going to sample literally in the middle of this highlight. I clicked and I'm sampling and I'm going outwards because I still want to keep that highlight. What you don't want to do is just sample from this area and then bring it here and then get rid of the highlight. You want to keep the highlight. So again, sampling from inside the highlight and going outwards. That's just personally what I do. These are tricky areas for me, so you definitely want to just try your best to get it as smooth as possible. Use a small brush. Don't be too frustrated. It's definitely, even for me, an area like this, it's tricky. So don't, again, worry too much if it doesn't come out the way that you want it at first. Just keep trying. Okay, so then I'm going to keep bringing this highlight out and then see this color right here? I'm sampling the inside of it and then bringing that out as well. Again, I'm not taking this color and sampling it inside of the highlight. I'm keeping the highlight as is, keeping that same color. Okay, there we go. Again, I'm bringing it downwards. And you can also take from the bottom and bring it upwards as well. Do those brush strokes this way so that it looks a bit cleaner. And then again, highlight. We're taking that main point of the highlight and bringing it outwards. And I do want to blend this area a bit more, I'm noticing. Now, for the smile lines, because I know some of you guys get rid of these completely. Again, totally up to you. It's your photography. You can retouch however you want. Personally, I'll show you guys what I do. I will usually duplicate, which is what we just did. And then I will retouch a little bit of this. And I'll show you guys. I'll retouch a little bit like this. And then what I'll do is if I turn the high frequency layer back on, you can see all the differences that were made here. If I go back and forth. Now what you could do, this is an option, you could simply lower the opacity so that it blends in a little bit more. I've done this a lot. If I feel like I over retouched it or it looks too smooth, I'll just simply lower the opacity. That's something that you can do, especially when it comes to the smile lines. Sometimes when you get rid of those completely, sometimes your photo can lose that, it can just look a little bit too fake. So again, it's totally up to the person retouching, whatever. Everyone has a different style. Personally, I like to just keep it a little bit showing, but using a small brush, you can simply, again, just go over the smile line. We still want the line there. We don't want to just smooth this out because we lose that dimension in the photo. And then this section right here, you want to click. I'm sampling this color and then just going in because it's kind of like in the middle. It's not too dark, not too light. So that will be like the perfect tone for us to use to blend in everything on this side. And I'm using a very, it's not the smallest brush, but I'm using very small strokes, as you can see here, to kind of blend this in like that. Now, if you wanted to, you could remove this area. You could, and then just, again, what I showed you before, lower the opacity of the frequency, the low frequency layer. I'll show you guys. How would that look? Let me show you guys. Like if I was to go in with a brush, and I'm making this a large brush now, I'm sampling from this area, bringing it in. I'll show you guys what that looks like. So larger brushes too will help blend a little bit easier. But again, look at, it's already, we're seeing a bit of patchiness here, which is why sometimes I will use the smaller brushes. But again, that's why the tablet is so great. If you're using like a pen to retouch, you can go even softer by using pen pressure. Again, we're kind of retouching out this way. And we're simply retouching down. Again, I'm not really touching that highlight area. And there's an area here that's a little bit lighter. I'm not going to touch that either. Okay, there we go. So that's kind of what it looks like now. So I'll turn on high frequency so we can get a better look. So that's what it would look like. And now is the time where I usually keep the high frequency layer on and then I retouch using that while it's on so that I can get a clear image of how the final photo is going to be with the skin being as it is. And again, if I feel like this is a little bit over edited, because sometimes it can feel like that, what I like to do is lower the opacity. And then also I'm going to just clean up the neck just a little bit. I'm going to select this point in the middle here. So I kind of take a medium color, and then just use it to blend in these darker colors for the neck. Over here as well. Always good to just start off with a lighter color. Like a medium, not light, but medium toned color. There's so many different words when it comes to describing all things Photoshop and colors and tools, all that. Okay. Then also over here, just a little bit. Okay. So something like this. And then the high frequency layer is going to be used for these little blemishes here. So I'm going to duplicate high frequency, turn the top one off, just in case. Again, this is just something that I personally do, again, if I mess up. So we have this high frequency layer. I'm selecting option, I'm sampling, and I like to sample a small area nearby and then just click one time. I don't like to drag and do all this. I simply hold, click, and then kind of stamp it on. So hold and click. And what you could also do is, before you even create the frequency separation folder and start doing this, you could use the healing brush tool to get rid of all of these blemishes before you even start doing this, which is probably what I should have done. Like, maybe I should have done that, but I usually can navigate it using the high frequency layer. I just get rid of it. So it's, my friend Kaylee, she actually teaches dodge and burn retouching. I'll have a link to her classes in the description. And that's what she does before she starts actually dodge and burn retouching. She usually goes in with I believe it's called the patch tool, and also the healing brush tool. She goes in on the image and gets rid of all of that. But I'm just showing you how you can use the high frequency layer to get rid of these little blemishes and things like that. But the thing is, there's so many different ways that you can retouch and edit photos. Everyone's going to have their own personal way of doing things, which is, I think that's great. Everyone has their own style, and that's how it should be. So I'm going to get rid of these little things right here. Again, I'm clicking once, and I'm stamping it on. So I'm not doing too much of the brush strokes over here. It's more like just one click and go. And then over here, I'm just going to clean that up. I'm going to go back to the low frequency layer, and then again, just clean up this area. With the high frequency layer on, now you can see a bit more clearly. Okay, there we go. And I'm cleaning up this area as well. It's really just a lot of small brush strokes, and I love using this technique. I will say, if I was ever to do macro photography, macro beauty, I would love to learn more dodge and burn retouching. The difference is insane. So look, maybe if you want, maybe you're starting to do skin retouching, dodge and burn is definitely an amazing technique. Again, it is a bit more difficult. It's a lot more difficult. But I think frequency separation is still a great technique to use. I like that I have the option of using either. It just depends on what type of style you want and how many hours you want to put into learning dodge and burn retouching. But I would definitely recommend it if you want to do macro beauty though. Okay. So now that we've cleaned up most of the image, I'm going to zoom out, and this is how it looks. Again, if I wanted to, I can go, like right now, the opacity it was at around 70, and now I'm gonna just bump it up all the way to 100, and you can see the before and after of how that looks. Before and after. And I know some people like to get rid of this under eye area. I actually really like it. Again, that's just based on preference. So you can keep it, you can get rid of it if you want. And one other thing you could do, is, and I rarely do this, but this is just something, an option you can use. Use the brush tool, make a brand new layer in between high and low frequency. And for any reason you want to, like, let's say you just wanted to slightly lighten this up, this under eye area, select from under the eye by holding down the option key, and the little color picker will come up. And then with the opacity at 11% and my brush, I'm going to have it at a very low hardness. I'm just going to go over like this, just like that, very light. I might even go lighter on this eye, maybe even like 4%. Very lightly with a brush going under that area. That's what it would look like. It would just brighten it up. Again, if that's something that you wanted to do. And then one last thing I want to do is just clean up this area over here. I just want to smooth it out, transition it a little bit better. So using strokes that are a bit longer, like so, going outwards, sampling from this area. Again, it's not the lightest color, but we're in the middle here, which is great. And then that highlight, I definitely still want to keep that highlight though. So something like this. We're going to use the brush one more time. We're going to go to Command-Shift-N and then make another layer sandwiched between high frequency and low frequency. I'm going to take the brush tool and then sample a color kind of right here. I'm going to make sure my opacity is really low, around 8%. And the brush hardness is at 0. We can even do the flow at around 34, just so that it's a bit softer. And I'm just going to go over this area. And this is just something that I do if I want to lighten up an area a little bit easier. And I'm going to go over here as well. And I'll show you how that looks towards the end. And this is something that you could do. I wouldn't recommend always doing this though. I try to get it right when I'm doing the healing brush tool with the low frequency layer. But again, this is just another option for you. You can do that. And then what you could do is lower the overall layer opacity if you wanted to blend that in a little bit better. So this is before and that's after. Again, this is just if you wanted to soften some parts of your picture up. It's an option. You can use the brush tool. So with that, let me show you a full before and after. This is before. This is after. And let me zoom out. And this is before, and this is after. I'm going to be adding some beautiful tones to this photo, making it pop. I'll show you exactly how I edit this picture in part 2. Link will be in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.